got bar oil in the piston. That's no good. Pull the plug out. It's covered in bar oil, which means there's a seal between the tank with the bar oil and the bottom of the crank. That gasket is blown out. No good. No good. See that or not? Bar oil coming out the spark plug hole. The reservoir is empty for the bar oil, so I'm not going to be fighting it. This little saw needs some help, for sure. It's a Stihl 050. Old one, heavy. That's a shut off. Years ago I ground that off to kill the saw. You just short out the coil. It worked, wasn't ideal, but at the time that's what I did. And I remember this thing locked up on me out of nowhere. Well, come to find out, the bar oil is filling up the jug. So I don't know how it's getting on top of the piston though. You're getting bar oil on top of the piston. Not sure. It's got to be going around the crank. And then the rings must not be, 100% because it sits sideways in there. And this must be filling up top of the piston, I guess. I'm not 100% sure how you replace that gasket. So it's this tank. You got to split the saw in half to do it. That don't sound like very much fun. Yeah, look at all that bar oil coming out. Let that sit there and drain for a second while I try to figure out a game plan. Whether this saw is going to be repaired or parts. It might just be a parts saw. Wow. Look at all that oil coming out of the spark plug hole. No good. Anybody has any insight into how big a job that is to split this saw, let me know, because I've never done it. Doesn't look like much fun. I don't know if it's worth my time, to be honest with you. But that is wild, how much bar oil I got going through that engine. Huh. Just making a mess. I picked the wrong saw to mess with today. Lots of other saws. I used to run this one quite a bit. It runs 404 chain. So it's kind of fun. I might just part it out. Gotta decide what to do here. I'll tear the saw apart, try to fix it. Or do I start stripping parts off of it? Label my little box here. No, I don't know what to do. It's an 050. So it ain't worth nothing. As a whole itself, the parts might be all right. I don't do any eBay stuff or anything like that. I just, if I come across another saw, similar saw that needs something, I'll have it. I'll just hang on to it. But these saws are getting so old that you don't really come across them anymore. Got that 045 Super. This is an 050 AV. Might throw the plug in it, hit it with some ether and see if it'll fire. If she'll fire, maybe we'll put her back together the right way. If it don't, we'll just tear it apart. I got it'll fire. Got so much bar oil on top of that piston. Just gonna foul it right away, I'm afraid. There's a can in there by hand. Pop that on. Where's the nuts at? There we go. Losing my brain here. Top cover, new plate, side cover, fuel. There's the throttle linkage, top cover retaining screw. What the heck? Huh. I think the groove legs walked away. But anyways, just throttle up. Put some ether on it. Give her a few pulls, see if anything happens. Nope. She locked up. Too much bar oil in there. Yep, just coated. Look at that. I'd say this saw is a lost cause. No sense of wasting time on this thing. She'd be best just getting thrown back together. I'll throw it back in the barn. And then if I come across a similar saw that I could use for parts, I've got a good part saw right here. So, which is a shame because this thing was running great last time I used it. I mean, that was a couple years ago, but still it ran good. So we'll just throw this back together, put the plug back in. No bueno. It's the only saw in my collection that runs 404 chain. I got 3 rolls of that. So, oh, I guess I got a Johnson Red that runs 404. The old Logger Northern Canada chain. The nickname is Log Chain. Get a second here, I'll show you the difference between 404 and 325 and 3/8. Get in there. Put this plug back in. Just keep that oil inside that piston, might as well, if it's going to be sitting forever. That way it doesn't lock up. And it won't leak all over the floor. So where the heck did I put the carburetor nuts? Top cover. There's my side cover. Oh yeah, look, it's got bar oil coming out the exhaust. old one, but not a good one anymore. Not even a wall hanger. It's not cool enough. It's going to be in the saw pile. Just toss her away. Eventually, once I strip full of parts, I'll toss it away. I gotta clear those damn carburetor nuts away. It must have been on a rag and I pitched the rag. That's okay. I have lots more. And there. There's our linkage. Alright, it's gonna be stubborn. Right there. Drop the linkage right down the throat. There. Throw that on the wall because it kind of looks cool. All right, the Stihl 050 is a lost cause. I do not believe she'll be put back to work ever again. Because the amount of bar oil it's pushing into the engine is crazy. And I believe you got to split the whole saw in half in order to change it, so I got plenty of other saws that need work over this relic. But I come across another one that I need a recoil for, or coil, or handle, or top cover. I mean, this saw's got good parts on it. Nothing crazy. It's been taped here. I don't remember why. Bushings are blown out in the back of the handle. It's got cool old school dogs. It's got a good clutch, good caps. This will make a good part saw. Set this one aside. This is a saw I was working on the last time. I did a shade tree fuel line in it. I believe should work, but it's not working. It's running out of fuel. So I'm thinking it might be this impulse line going to the carburetor. Because she will run, she'll run on ether, it won't pick up itself. It's got plenty of fuel in it. New filter, fuel line is okay-ish. But it just won't pick up and run. Just runs out of fuel. So back in here is an impulse line. Goes to the back of that carburetor. And first looks, it looked fine. But until you tear into it, you don't really know. Could be a cracked intake boot. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off. Take a look at that impulse line and see if that's our problem. I ordered the correct line, I hope, last night. I should have waited until I figured out if that impulse line was bad or not, but Pull this carburetor back off. Parts off this one. This is a good saw. This is an 026 Pro. See-through gas tank. They got a lot of power. It's the MS-261's great grandpa. That being said, it'll run right with them. And they are just hard running old saws. Alright. Last night, this thing kicked my butt on this linkage. Don't want a repeat of that. I'm super irritated. I might be able to pull that off. Not sure we pull it off as one unit or not. Let's see here. Always check your color on your plugs. You do not want to see white. White is bad. White means lean. Lean means not enough gas. Or way too much air. Could mean that too. Boy, it's been a long time since I pulled one of these apart. Side cover's got to come off. And then these caps cover the screws. One. And I'll show you the screw underneath there. This little gun on chainsaws, if you see it, you don't know what it is. It's a chain catch. That's what that is. So if your chain breaks, it falls off and it whips around, that'll catch it. It's supposed to keep it from coming back and slapping you in the leg. So that tin plate covers your adjuster. I'm trying to gain access to this cover here. I need to gain access to that. I'm pretty sure I do. There's a cushion in there. I'm not seeing a place to get underneath it. See, it's trying to rotate. Grab a pick. There it went. So what I did there is I took a pick down this hole, pulled it out of there. There's the screw I was looking for. That carburetor's gonna have to come off. There it went. Okay. Pull this fuel line off. So what we're trying to get to is down in here, there's this line. They call it your impulse line. It creates a vacuum on the carburetor to help pull the fuel in. So this thing will run on ether just fine. It just won't pick up enough to stay running. So I did a makeshift fuel line that should work. New filter, good gas. It's got good compression. It's just not picking it up. So I got a feeling that impulse line is no good. It's got a crack in it or something. Which is funny because I was using this saw and then it just, one day it just wouldn't start. Almost is odd how it wouldn't start because the saw just never gave me any clues that it was having any problem starting. Because one day it said nope. Figure out how to get. So there's a boot right here on the intake. There's a metal shim, or gasket if you want to call it that. It should pop off. What this metal plate does is keep the rubber intake seated flush on the handle side here. You can just tell the way these older saws are built. So the new saws, like your MS250s, they have the same setup, but it's a real thin piece of tin. This thing's thick, rigid, you're not going to bend that. The newer ones, you have to be careful pushing it in there because you'll bend it. This kind of example how the old stuff is just built better, I guess, more robust. There we go, and push. Oh, this one even had a little bushing, you'd call it, to keep the shape of the intake. New saws don't have that either. You're going to push the rubber boot in. There's the intake. Figure out how to get. I believe the impulse line goes onto the crank, or goes on the handle first, and then you push it on the crank. So it's kind of a pain to do. So I'll pop it off of there without ripping it. there. Okay. That is off. Now, if I can't find a problem with impulse line, there's a chance that the crank seals may be bad. So this is what we've been after. Cleaned up here. Actually, it looks pretty good. It is good. Well, that sucks. Why is this thing not getting fuel? Take a look at the intake here, intake boot. So these old saws actually have a hose clamp that holds the intake boot to the jug. New saws don't have that. New saws have a piece of plastic that'll swedge the boot on there. Terrible design. Just cheap. This one's actually got a good clamp to ensure you're not leaking on the intake. I'm not knocking new saws. I got a lot of new saws. They run great. I'm just saying from a mechanic's standpoint on how they're built, the old ones were just built better. So you can see on this intake, it's got dimples, those little nubs. They do that to get the gas to spread out when it goes into the jug. They say it makes it run better, but now that we're looking at it, we can see the piston. Looks like brand new. No scoring. You can't see it, but it looks great, trust me. Now I just got to figure out why it's not getting fuel. I know it's not the carburetor, because that's a new carburetor. I don't believe it's my fuel line. It's got good compression, just not picking up fuel. One thing I noticed is this tank vent has been pushing fuel out of it when I go to run it. So it made me wonder if, made me think that maybe the fuel tank isn't vented correctly, causing the fuel not to be able to pick up, almost creating a vacuum or locking the fuel in the tank. So that being said, I'm spilling fuel right here, so it's got to be vented. Well, these saws are pretty cool. 026 Pro. Stihl was thinking about the Pro guys. So when you're in the field, you can see your fuel. That way you're not running out, you're not leaning your saw out. This should be the standard on all saws, in my opinion. I mean, when you're cutting, quick glance, you're not stopping, pulling your cap, making sure you're not running out of gas. I mean, I get that's part of their Pro line. But come on. They could do that on all their saws. That would set them apart from everybody else. See-through gas tank. Never lean out your saw again. All you gotta do is look down. Now I gotta figure out what to do. Yeah, that line looks great. Well, now I gotta get the damn thing back together. There's no reason to suspect the pulse line anymore. It looks fine. Intake looks great. It's kind of a bummer, honestly. I was really hoping that line was bad, because it'd be cut and dry what the problem is right there, but that is not the case. And I'll get on there. There it went. Just a little bit. And we have to index that intake boot to the handle. So there's our impulse line. Clean up all this gunk. Well, I got it off because it's rare to have it off. It's pretty amazing how much crud gets in the crevices of these saws. You're thinking, oh, it's just sawdust, but sawdust with moisture and bar oil and spilling gas and stuff, it's crazy what they'll suck in. This is going to be the hard part. Trying to get that impulse line back on this nipple right here. That's where these come in handy. And I'm going to line up this intake. It actually looks pretty good right there. Some Stihl was nice. They would have left us a little bit longer line. There. We've got to get this intake boot back through the handle without ripping it. Some guys will take the fishing string and tie it on the intake boot. But I've found if you just get mad and screw it, it'll eventually go. Send it up here. Oh, you bastard. Front bushing was fighting me as far as getting this handle forward. This is where a lot of guys screw up. Take a pick, you can work that intake boot around, but you can't poke a hole in it. There. That's what you're going after. The light. That intake boot has to be pulled on the handle side without being torn or a hole popped in it. Now, I'm going to reach back down in there to verify that impulse line is still on. Looks like it is. So we got to tighten that clamp up. Like where it's sitting. All right, cool. Looks good. Let's get a couple of the screws back inside here. Hold that handle. That'll keep that handle from coming off now. So that's good. There was a little bushing, call it brass, little brass insert to keep that intake from collapsing. Keeping it true to the size. Goes right in there. Then we have that robust plate. That flat on there. side bushing. I'll hold off on that for right now. We'll hold off on the coil wires for right now. Should be able to pop this carb back on. I should pop this carburetor apart, just because even though it's new, don't mean it's right. Throw a new plug in there too. That'd be crazy if the plug was the problem the whole time. Alright, get the carburetor apart. Retaining screw. It's brand new. I don't believe I ever got it running after I did the carburetor. So I'm gonna take a peek, make sure there wasn't a piece of gunk or something in there. Nah, it's brand new. Enough sense of screwing with that. Together. Okay. Throttle's on. I don't like how I did this fuel line. So trim this back a little bit. Shorten it just a little bit. Fuel line's on. Got a couple carburetor nuts on here. See what's going on. So I ran like this before the new carburetor. That's why I did carburetor. It's not terrible. Won't run with the new carburetor. Impulse line's fine. It's just not picking up the fuel. New fuel line. Or modified fuel line. It should work though. I don't believe it's a spark issue. Nice and tight. Throttle's working. Good. Probably tighten that up. That's on. Go ahead and put here. Yeah, should be alright. There's rubber boot on them. It won't ground itself out. Oh hell, I got a handle. Yeah, that's right. Let's see what it does. Fired. Runs on ether. It's got plenty of gas. New filter. Good fuel lines. Screw down. Let's go 1 1/4. Nothing. This damn saw just refuses to run. For whatever reason. Maybe she'll like that new plug. It's running worse now. Before, at least fire on ether. I must be excited if it's flooded, but it ain't. No, it ain't. There's some China plug I had. We'll go back to a good plug. Well, likes that plug a lot better. Oh, well, you think of it's running out of fuel. It's not getting fuel. So I'm thinking maybe the crank seals are bad enough. It's not pulling the impulse line vacuum it needs for that fuel pump to work. I don't know. Anybody's got any ideas? Throw them out there. I have the right tools to test the seals. But typically when crank seals go bad, you'll have a saw you're using and running. When you go to take down a tree or put it outside or tip the saw down, it'll idle up because it's sucking more air. This saw never did any of that. This saw was getting used up in the day, didn't want to start, which was the next day. It had no symptoms, no issues, ran great. It was one of my go-to grab saws. And then went to go cut wood, wouldn't start, screwed with it, ethered it, fired, doing the same thing it's doing. Just running out of fuel. But why? Maybe it'll join the part saw pile. Part saw pile's growing at a high rate. Side up a little bit more. Turn that idle in. this one might have me beat. I'm not sure. Not sure. Well, I'm thinking about stuff. Put some of this back together. Just running out of fuel. I don't know why. Won't pick up any fuel. No reason other than the crank seals being blown out. Have to be the answer. Don't think it can be at this point. Have to pony up and spend some of my money on some tooling to diagnose that correctly. Just got to pressurize the cylinder and then check for leaks. I don't have that, so. There we go. Still an undiagnosed 026 Pro. This one's got me beat. Just based off the symptoms, what it's doing, I'm gonna say crank seals, but as well as this thing ran before, I find that hard to believe, but I'm kind of running out of ideas. For now, she'll go back on the shelf for a later date. I'll pull down a saw that maybe won't beat me. We'll see. So far for the day, I'm 0 for 2. A couple nights ago, I was 3 for 3. So there we go. I appreciate everybody coming and watching. Have a good one.